Our story today begins in the hush before dawn, where mist curls low over a wide meadow, soft as spun wool. This is the land beneath the western tower of Eldengard Castle, a place forgotten by war, where morning birds sleep in hedges and the earth smells of damp hay and clover. There, beside a mossy stone wall, a young woman stands very still. She wears a cloak of faded blue, stitched with patches her grandmother made when the sky was different and the stars knew her name. Lynette is a falconer, though she never calls herself that. She simply says, "I keep company with birds." Perched upon her outstretched arm is a kestrel, the color of rosewood, his breasts, his eyes amber and moonlit, watchful, still. Lynette does not speak to him. Instead, she whistles, soft, long, curling sounds like wind over grass, each note a memory, a language learned not from books, but from her grandmother's lips beside the hearth. In medieval days, falconers were respected, trusted with noble birds and noble secrets alike. It was believed that falcons could sense what no one else could: grief, joy, even dishonesty. A restless heart could never keep a falcon, but a gentle one. A kind one, yes. Lynette's meadow is still. The kestrel lifts his wings once, twice, feathers whispering against the breeze, and then he takes flight. Not with flurry, not with force, but with grace, like a sigh released to sky, and Lynette watches. As he disappears into the low white fog, trusting him to return. She does not pace. She does not call. Instead, she sits on a rounded stone, worn smooth by decades of waiting. She pulls from her satchel a strip of cloth and begins to stitch. Tiny, neat movements, the kind her grandmother taught her, one for the heart, one for the eye, and one for the wing, threaded in soft gray and cloud-white wool. Each stitch is a rhythm. Each loop a lullaby. And as she works, the meadow holds its breath. Even the trees seem to listen. Would you like to know how she learned this? How a girl in a quiet corner of the world came to speak the language of wings? It began many years ago, when Lynette was very small, and her grandmother old. She lived in a stone hut at the edge of the wood, a place that smelled of feathers and cedar oil, with ropes of bells on the door and soft moss for the birds to nest in. Nan said, "If you listen close, girl, you'll hear their dreams." Birds remember the sky even when their eyes are shut. And Lynette would lie beside her at night, under a thatched roof that whispered in the wind, listening to the soft rustle of feathers above. Not in cages, never cages, but on wooden beams, with the windows open to the stars. She learned their whistles first, then their silences, then the way their wings paused, just for a heartbeat, before every true flight. Lynette smiles now. The kestrel has not yet returned, but she is not worried. In the distance, A faint trill sounds, sharp, proud, and sweet. The call of a falcon on the wind. She whistles back, a low, curling tone, not to command, but to greet. Because in the old ways, falconry was not mastery, it was partnership, trust forged through patience. In medieval courts, nobles would pay a year's wages for the right bird, but no amount of coin could make it listen. And it, she has love like the sea has salt. The sun is lifting now. The sun is lifting now, a pale yellow disk behind the morning mist, and the kestrel. He returns. He comes low and fast, wings tight, eyes gleaming. But he does not land on her glove just yet. Instead, he circles her twice. Then settles on a nearby branch, silent, watching. Lynette nods, knowing he'll return when he's ready. And so, she hums. A soft tune with no words, just the melody Nan once sang. While preparing meat with a curved silver knife, her hands steady, her voice gentler than clouds. As Lynette watches the rising sun and the kestrel settles into his perch, let your breath slow just a little more. Feel the warmth of the day begin to bloom just at the edges of your chest, as if a beam of morning light is resting gently there. This world is safe. This meadow is yours, too. The hush of feathers, the stitching of cloth, the distant echo of a grandmother's song, all here to guide you down into the dream. There are mornings in Eldengard that feel older than time. And this is one of them. The mist does not burn away quickly. It lingers, curling around the branches of rohan trees, tracing the outlines of old stone fences, whispering across the fields like breath through lace. Lynette knows these mornings best. They are her favorites. She says the birds fly softer on days like this, as though the air itself is listening, as though the sky is in no hurry to open fully, but instead waits, so you can feel each moment stretch like warm honey. She hums again, barely audible, her voice moving like smoke through reeds. And from the trees, her kestrel stirs. He hops once, twice, and glides down to her leather glove. No talon. He is careful with her, as she is with him. Lynette offers him a small piece of quail meat, wrapping it gently in waxed linen. Patience feeds the mind, Nan once said. Never give food without thought. Even mealtime was a lesson in grace. The kestrel eats, head tilting now and then, his eyes never leaving hers. Because, you see, in those old days of castles and courtships, falconry wasn't just for hunting. It was a bond. A silent, shared rhythm between two creatures who chose to trust. The lords of Eldengard, long gone now, once held great tournaments here, knights in shining armor, trumpets on the wind, flags flapping in rows of bright color. But Lynette's grandmother never cared for those. Too much noise, she'd grumble. and not a feather among them worth the fuss. She cared for the rooftop cages, the tall perches, the cool stone mews where hawks rested in straw. She knew the name of every bird, and every bird knew her silence. Sometimes, when Lynette was small, she'd awaken to find a falcon perched at the foot of her bed, asleep, as if it had flown through a dream just to watch over hers. Nan never explained it. She only whispered, "Some spirits come with wings." Now Lynette sees them too. Not spirits exactly, but shadows of movement, glimmers of memory in the corners of dawn. Today, she feels one near. She rises slowly from her stone seat, the kestrel still perched. The mist parts for her steps. Grass leans in gently to brush her boots, and dew clings to the hem of her skirt like silver thread. Beyond the tree line, she sees it to shape, tall, still, a lone goshawk, not hers, not anyone's. Wild and beautiful. Its chest is wide, its feathers thick and ruffled with the chill, its eyes a pale frost blue. Lynette breathes in. 1, 2, 3. Then she whistles. Not commandingly, just a soft spiral of sound. A curl of music in the morning air. The goshawk listens, does not fly, just listens. In medieval Europe, goshawks were thought to be noble spirits. Only high-born lords and ladies could own them. But this one, this wild watcher, belongs only to the air. Lynette does not move forward. She knows better. Respect is not earned by walking closer. It is offered by standing still. So she bows her head slightly, then turns away. The goshawk remains, watching, always watching. She returns to her hut, just as the sun finally breaks the clouds. The light strikes the roof first, a thatch of golden straw and lichen, then the doorway, then the path of rounded stones leading to the wooden perch where the birds rest. Inside, it is quiet. Woven baskets hang from the beams, filled with molted feathers. Her grandmother's carved cane leans by the hearth, and the air smells of sage, wool, and roasted grains. She lights a small fire, not with but with flint and steel, the medieval way, as Nan taught her. Sparks, a glow, like the breath of the earth itself. She removes her gloves and wraps them on their hook, then carefully unfastens the kestrels. Then carefully unfastens. Then him perch on the wide, rounded beam above the fire. He ruffles his wings once, then settles. Eyes soft, tired. He is home. And so is she. Outside, the wild goshawk is gone, but its presence remains in the meadow air, a silence so full it hums. Lynette places a kettle over the fire, pouring in a tisane of dried mint, apple peel. She watches it rise, and as it does, she closes her eyes. Just for a moment. And in that moment, she hears it again. Her grandmother's voice, low and steady as moss-covered bells. Whistle only when you mean it. Girl, the wind listens. More than we know. Now, dear dreamer, feel the warmth of that fire curl softly into your fingers. Hear the rustling of feathers as the kestrel tucks his head. Breathe in the scent of sweet mint and old woods. You are here in this hush, in this moment, and it is enough, more than enough. The steam from the kettle curls in long ribbons, each one reaching upward like a question, soft, slow, and silver in the dim morning light. Lynette doesn't rush her tea. She waits, watching the tiny bubbles rise and burst around the edges of the kettle. Listening to the fire crackle and sigh beneath the pot. The coals shift like ancient murmurs, glowing orange beneath the blackened logs. The hut is still. Even the birds are resting now. Silent atop their wooden beams, their feathers fluffed against the slow warmth of the room. But not completely. It clings to the corners of the meadow like an old shawl, unwilling to let go. Lynette pours the tea with both hands, the way Nan taught her. Pour like you're speaking a blessing, and drink like you're listening for one. The mug is warm in her palms, earthenware, hand-glazed, chipped slightly near the rim. Her grandmother's initials are scratched faintly on the base. M.W. Mara Wynne. Some said Nan had the second sight. Others said she just listened better than most. Either way, when she whistled, birds came. And when she died, they circled the hilltop for 3 days. Even the castle lords noticed. Even the hawks from the distant mountains came down to glide over the fields. A funeral of wings. She sips her tea in silence. The taste is soft, mint and meadows, with a whisper of apple and old memory. Then, laying a single slice of dark oat bread, the kestrel watches her quietly. He knows this rhythm. Soon he will fly again, but not yet. Outside, the path winds gently behind the hut, leading into the bramblewood, where tangled vines creep over fallen trees and songbirds flicker between branches like candlelight. Lynette walks it slowly, her steps soundless, her breath steady. The deeper she walks, the older the woods feel. These trees are not tall, but they are wise, twisted with age, and beneath them, woven into roots and moss, lie the hidden stones of a falconer circle, a ring of flat rocks arranged long ago by those who whispered 2 wings before her. Nan called it The listening ring. Some people pray, she said. Lynette kneels at the ring's center. The earth is cool and damp beneath her knees. She closes her eyes and breathes. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale again. All around her, the forest breathes too. Not in words, but in motion. In the rustle of ivy, the creak of trunks, the drip of dew from one green leaf to another. She hums, just once. A note, low and curling. Then a whisper of wings. The kestrel has followed. He perches on a branch just above her, watching with tilted head, as if he, too, remembers Nan. As if he, too, has come to sit in the ring of stone and hear. Whatever it is, the world wishes to say. There is a legend in Eldengard. One few remember now. It is said that once long before the great towers rose, before knights bore banners and bishops carved prayers into glass, a girl sat in this very forest with a bird on her shoulder and a voice that echoed without echo. She could calm the fiercest hawk with a single note, and when she sang, the rivers paused to listen. Some called her a witch. Some called her a saint. None called her the first falconer. Lynette thinks of her often, especially now. She places her palms flat against the earth. It is soft with last night's rain, alive, whispering. And in that silence, beneath the hush of trees and the soft stir of wings, Lynette asks a question, not aloud, but inside. A question she's held quietly like a smooth pebble in the hollow of her heart. Am I enough? The earth does not answer in words, but a breeze stirs, gentle, full of pine and soil, and something else. In agreement? Yes, it seems to say. A single feather drops from above. Not the kestrel's. Longer white-tipped it floats down, down, spinning in the light, and settles near her knee. Lynette picks it up without question. Another sign, another whisper. The listening ring always gives something to those who sit still enough. Rosemary to guard against nightmares. Lynette smiles, remembering how Nan used to tuck rosemary sprigs into her pillowcase when she was small. Let the green keep your dreams from wandering too far, she'd whisper. Today Lynette visits the baker first. His son, Jamie, has a wounded thumb, bitten by a goose. She applies the ointment gently, cooling it with a dab of vinegar-soaked wool. As she wraps it in fresh linen, the boy leans against her knee, watching the kestrel circle overhead. Does he ever get tired? Jamie asks softly. Lynette smiles, brushing a curl from his forehead. Only when I do, she says. Next, she visits the widow Morel. The woman sits by a cracked window, sorting beans with hands as gnarled as driftwood. She cannot see much anymore, but she listens well. I heard your whistle this morning, Morel says. You were near the stones again. Linnet nods. Yes, the listening ring. The widow's mouth curls in the ghost of a smile. Good. Your Nan would want you to keep sitting there. She reaches out blindly, and Lynette presses her palm to the woman's with care. No words pass between them. They are not needed. By midday, Lynette sits beneath a linden tree. At the edge of the village, the kestrel perches nearby on a fence post, preening, his feathers gleaming in the pale gold light. She offers him a sliver of dried rabbit, and he takes it with careful grace. There is a hush here, a peace that settles on her shoulders like a shawl worn smooth by time. The linden leaves flutter softly overhead, their shape like tiny hearts, trembling gently in the breeze. And she thinks perhaps this is the truest falconry of all. Not the hunt, not the show, but this, the stillness between breaths, the silence between notes. The moment when two living things simply exist, together, without needing anything more. Lynette closes her eyes, leaning back against the tree. Her hand rests against the pouch at her side, where the white-tipped feather lies. Gifted by the forest earlier that morning, it is warm now from the sun, or perhaps from her own heart. Nan would have said, "That's not just any feather, girl. That's a sign. The goshawk came for a reason. They always do." But what reason? Lynette wonders. Why now, and what is she meant to do? She doesn't ask aloud. The answers don't come faster that way. Instead, she breathes in and out, and lets the quiet hold her until her mind softens like honey on warm bread. No rush. No worry. Dear dreamer, let that stillness settle in your bones now. Let your breath grow slow and even, like the swing of a kestrel's wings. Let your limbs grow heavier, as if the earth is gently holding you in place. You are safe. You are warm. You are part of this story now. And there is no need to hurry. No need at all. The linden leaves whisper above her, a language of rustling edges and summer dreams. The kind of sound that draws eyelids low until even thought becomes soft and quiet. Lynette lingers there a while longer beneath the tree's gentle shade, letting the warmth of the day soak into her skin like sun through old glass. The kestrel naps, head tucked beneath one wing, perched and peaceful. When she finally rises, the village bell has rung once. A low, distant note that drifts like smoke through the air. Not a call to urgency, just a reminder. The kind of bell that says, the bread is nearly done. The shadows will stretch soon, and so she begins the walk home. The path is golden now, filtered through tree branches that sway in a rhythm older than memory. Her satchel is lighter. The herbs and wraps given. She feels the good tiredness of a task completed without noise, without rush. And isn't that a kind of magic, too? On her way back, she passes a stone carved with falcon markings. Half worn now. Nan once told her it marked the path used by falcon messengers during the old sieges. A secret road, a safe road. A bird could fly from tower to tower, carrying scraps of hope when words were too dangerous to speak aloud. Even kings trusted falcons more than their own scribes. A bird cannot betray, Nan said. It flies where it is loved, and nowhere else. Lynette touches the stone as she passes, fingers tracing the outline of a feather carved in the soft granite. Then she moves on, her shadow stretched long behind her. When she reaches the edge of the woods, the hut greets her like an old friend, its door slightly ajar, its windows winking with afternoon light. She sets her satchel by the bench, pours fresh water into the clay basin, and offers the kestrel a shallow dish to drink from. He dips his beak once, then again, the droplets catching in the sun like tiny stars falling. Inside, the fire is low again, but the embers are alive. She stirs it back to brightness with a careful hand and a few sticks of dried pine. The room fills once more with the scent of warmth, the memory of cooked herbs, and something deeper, that quiet sense of home that doesn't live in furniture or walls, but in breath and ritual and the knowing of hands that built the fire before you. She pulls a wooden box from beneath the bed. It is carved with vines, smoothed with age. Inside, carefully wrapped in cloth, are the stitched falcons she's been sewing for months. Some in flight, some perched, some stitched in deep twilight blues, others in soft fawn and russet thread. A prayer, a memory, a question whispered into fabric. Some are for the market next month. Others she keeps for herself, gifts to the forest, to the birds, to the wind. She lays one unfinished piece in her lap, a white goshawk, outlined and waiting to be filled. This one is for the feather. This one is for the watcher in the mist. For the sign she still doesn't quite understand, but respects all the same. Her needle dips and pulls, gliding through the cloth like a small, silver boat, slipping across calm water. Each stitch is a breath. Each pause between stitches, a heartbeat. Time slows, but to a sway. Outside, the sun tips westward. The birds in the trees grow quiet. Even the breeze lowers its voice. Inside, Lynette hums, That same song, the one with no words, just the rise and fall of memory, a lullaby for a bird she's not yet met, a calling made not with sound, but with care. And now, dear listener, feel your breath, follow the rhythm of linnet's thread, and out, loop and pull. Let your limbs grow loose. Let your shoulders melt just a little more. You are inside the hut now, too, wrapped in its quiet, its firelight, its kindness. Here, only story. And story will never ask more of you than this. Rest. Night doesn't fall here. It drifts. First, the corners of the room darken, like ink swirling in the edge of a page. Then the fire deepens in color, casting long gold shadows on the ceiling beams. Not black, silver. A sheen of moonlight settles over the grass. The kestrel shifts in his sleep, tucking one foot up into his chest, eyes sealed tight beneath delicate lashes of down. Her fingers are warm from the cloth, and her eyes soft with the hush of ours. She stands by the door, watching the horizon glow with the last breath of sun. In medieval times, people believed twilight was a veil, a sacred pause between two worlds. The moment when the spirit realm brushed against the waking one, so briefly. No letters were sent at twilight. No bargains made. It was a time for stillness. A time for listening. Linnet honors that. She opens the door, but does not step through. She simply stands and listens. The forest is a hush of feathers and bark. A single owl calls once from the canopy, a low, rounded sound that seems to roll through the trees like a dropped pearl. And then, nothing. Not silence exactly, but presence. That deep, living, quiet, where every sound belongs, and every breath. She lights a small taper with a sliver of the fire, places it in the iron lantern by the door, and carries it into the yard. The flame dances behind the glass, like a living thing, tame, but not tamed. She places the lantern on the post near the perch. It glows softly, casting circles in the grass, an invitation for watchers, for wanderers, for anything flying in the dusk that may need a little warmth. Nan used to say, a true falconer leaves the window open, always. Not because the bird will fly away, but because it might return. Linnet leaves the window open, even in winter, even in storm. Tonight, the air is gentle, cool, but kind. She leaves a sliver of bread on the sill, just in case. Then, she sits beside the fire and pulls her wool blanket over her knees, letting the warmth curl around her like a nest. The hut creaks faintly, not from age, but from memory. Every beam, every stone holds the echo of stories, told by women who loved birds and quiet things. Back at the hut, The fire is fading to embers. The room glows dim gold, and the bread is still waiting. She breaks it gently. Half for her, half crumbled outside the window for the wrens. It is a hello, a ritual as old as any prayer. And as the first true sunlight pours across the threshold, Lynette smiles. The goshawk may not return, but the kestrel is with her, and the listening ring has spoken, and her hands still remember how to stitch birds into cloth, how to guide flight with a song, and endlessly. And now, dear listener, let that quiet joy settle into your chest, like warm tea and early sun, from your heart to your fingertips, to your toes, until even your breath feels woven into the forest floor. There is nothing to do, nothing to change, just the sound of feathers and fire and soft earth, remembering every gentle step you've taken. The sun has risen a little higher, but the meadow remains wrapped in the hush of morning. Lynette steps outside once more, her satchel packed again, this time with small bundles wrapped in oilskin, herbal ointments, dried lavender, and thin slivers of feathered parchment. She is not going far, only to the village of Ashley, a walk of 2 miles through the forest trail. The kestrel will fly above her. He always does. His sharp eyes see far beyond what hers can. A rustle of hair in the thicket, a patch of berries blooming early, a dropped glove beneath an elder bush. He is her second sight, her winged companion, not a pet, never a pet, but a partner in rhythm with her breath. The path is soft beneath her boots, loam and leaf litter, still damp from last night's fog. A blackbird sings from the underbrush, its notes spiraling in the air like a string of polished beads. Lynette hums in reply, low, tuneless, more like breath than melody, and the forest seems to exhale with her. In medieval days, falconers walked these paths daily, moving between castles and villages, carrying messages sewn into feathers. Nobles once entrusted their deepest secrets to falcons. They believed birds could pass through danger unseen. No tolls at bridges, no suspicion at gates. A hawk on the wrist, or feared. Lynette thinks of this as she walks. How her grandmother's kestrel once flew with a lock of hair to a grieving widow across the valley. But the message was understood. Ashley is still quiet when she arrives. Thatched roofs peek through clusters of hedgerows, stone chimneys barely smoking. Children's shoes line the cottage walls, set out too dry, with sprigs of rosemary tied above them. An old tradition. She reaches into the carved box again and removes the white feather. It feels different in the dark, as if it hums gently in her palm. She does not speak to it. She only listens. 1 breath. 2. Then, softly, not loudly, not to summon, just to speak. A lullaby in the shape of a spiral. A whistle that starts low, then drifts upward, then vanishes like breath on a mirror. Outside, a breeze stirs the grass, and in the trees, a shape. It lands silently, as all goshawks do. Its wings do not flap. They glide, folding neatly as it perches on the same post where the lantern flickers. The bird is large, almost ghostly in its pale plumage. Its head tilts once, eyes glinting like frost in starlight. Lynette does not move. The fire crackles softly behind her. The kestrel remains asleep. The goshawk watches her, and she bows her head, not low. Just enough, an old gesture, an offering of trust. And in return, the goshawk stays. They remain that way for some time. Bird and girl, lantern and flame. It does not fly away. It circles once, then twice, then disappears into the night trees, where only the stars can see. But Lynette knows it will return, and that is enough. She closes the door slowly, softly, so as not to wake the sleeping kestrel. The fire is low again, but it glows like memory, like breath in winter, like the warmth of a grandmother's lap and the hum of a tune older than language. Lynette lies down on her straw bed, pulls the wool over her shoulders, and lets the day fade. She does not need answers yet, only dreams. Only this moment of perfect stillness, where feathers float through thought, and the sky hums a lullaby through the chimney stones. And now, dear one, let your own thoughts begin to lift and drift. Let your breath grow smooth, like a falcon gliding across the hush of evening. Feel the soft firelight behind your eyes, the rustle of distant trees in your chest, the echo of a gentle whistle curling towards sleep. You are safe, you are warm, you are loved by the night. Let it hold you now. Let it keep you. Let the story tuck you in. Our story begins again beneath a milk-white moon, one that hangs low over the pasture like a lantern suspended by invisible thread. The grass is tipped with silver frost, each blade glimmering as though dusted in stars. And through that soft hush, Lynette walks barefoot. The warmth of her body keeps the chill at bay, and the kestrel is perched on her shoulder, tucked against her neck like a folded scarf. She walks the path her grandmother once took, a winding trail between thickets and thorn, leading down to the lower grove where you trees grow like statues. These trees are old, so old that the villagers once believed they could whisper names to the wind, not names of people, but names of feelings. Solace, hope, forgiveness. The yews. Lynette pauses beneath one such tree. It arches over the path like a cathedral's nave. Its roots swell out of the earth in quiet spirals, coiling like the grip of time itself. She places her hand on its bark. Rough, cool, alive. She imagines her grandmother's hand beside hers, worn and small, always steady. In medieval times, it was believed that falcons, could carry not just messages. If you were sorrowful, your bird would return slower. If you were afraid, it might circle above instead of landing. Nan believed that too. And sometimes, Lynette thinks, it might be true. The kestrel chirps gently, a single sound, no louder than a sigh. Lynette tilts her head. You feel it too, don't you? She whispers. And the bird blinks, then settles again. Beneath the yew trees is a stone bench, half buried, a place forgotten by most, but sacred to Lynette. She sits with care, not to disturb, but to become part of the quiet. The way moss becomes part of stone. She breathes in the scent of pine needles and frost, breathes out worry. And then she reaches for her pouch. Inside, wrapped in linen, is a small carved whistle. Not her usual one. This one is older, smoothed at the corners from generations of hands, etched with faint lines that form a spiral on each side. It was her grandmother's, and her grandmother's before that, only used in winter, only used beneath the yews. The sound it makes is unlike any other. It does not pierce the air. It melts into it like steam rising from hot cider, or the hush that follows a lullaby's final note. Lynette blows it once, just once. And somewhere above, the trees do not rustle. The wind does not rise. But something changes. The very shape of the air becomes softer, rounder, as if curved by memory. And then he comes. Not from the sky, from the shadows. A great barn owl, pale as parchment, with eyes like two polished stones. He lands on the branch above her, utterly silent, watching, waiting. Always in winter, always in silence. Nan once said he was a memory made feathered. Not a pet, not a companion, but a visitor. A keeper of some story too old to retell. Lynette bows her head slightly. The kestrel does the same. For a moment, no one moves. Then the owl blinks. Once, twice, and lifts again. Before vanishing into the trees, Lynette places the whistle back in the linen. She does not speak. She does not need to. Some visits are enough simply for their quiet. She returns to her feet, presses a kiss to the bark of the yew, and walks back up the trail, the kestrel nestled close against her collar. No falcons were caught tonight. No training was done. But the hush of the grove will stay with her, like a feather caught in hair, or a dream you half remember, but still carry in your chest the next day. The hearth is still warm when she returns. She stirs the coals, gently adds a log, and watches it catch. The crackle is low, but familiar, like a voice returning after a long pause. She sits down with her cup of warmed milk, and the kestrel climbs into the crook of her elbow. tucking himself in like a child. Linnet hums a tune the same. Her Nan once hummed as they mended feather straps by candlelight. The shape of soft wings and old stone, and the spaces between stars. Tonight, you too may feel it. The hush between sounds, the silence beneath words, the warmth of something gentle settling over you like the wing of a trusted bird. No need to chase it, only let it come. Let it land softly. Let it keep watch while your thoughts begin to drift like feathers in a slow wind. You are safe here, and still more story waits. Lo, it curls in the air like smoke, then rises, then fades. And when it fades, the wind shifts, just slightly. Enough that the grass leans westward. Enough that each falcon blinks and lifts its head. Nothing is said, but all feel it. The binding has taken place, not with blood, not with vows, but with a hush and a shared breath beneath a gray sky and ancient stone. When the falconers part, they do so without goodbye. Their footsteps press no deeper than dew, and by midday the stones are empty again. Linnet walks the long way home through the silver-thin forest, where trees, where frost. Her kestrel flies above her this time, circling lazily, riding the slow, cold thermals. No command given, no need. Some bonds are stronger than instruction. Some simply are. That evening, back at her cottage, she sharpens her knives, oils the leather straps, and tends to the kestrel's talons. Each movement is slow, ritual. The hearth crackles nearby, and outside, snow begins to fall, blanketing the world in the same hush that lives inside her. She dreams of her grandmother that night, not as she was in old age, but young, laughing, with feathers tucked behind her ears and a kestrel swooping low over the wheat fields. In the dream, Nan whispers, "It's not about command, little sparrow. It's about trust." That's the only language birds ever needed. Linnet smiles in her sleep. The fire burns low. The kestrel stirs once, then rests again. And all through the night, the snow falls quietly. And you, too, may feel that hush. The gentle gathering of snowfall on the roof. The soft weight of silence settling across your shoulders. A circle of stillness. You don't have to earn or keep, only enter. There is more to this story yet. But for now, let your breath fall soft like ash on a winter hearth. Let your thoughts glide like feathers on a slow breeze. You are part of this quiet now. Our story today settles deeper into the quiet season, the weeks when even time seems to slow, curling in on itself like a sleeping fox. Linnet wakes to a white world. Snow has come in the night, blanketing roof and path, branch and feather. Outside her window, the fields are soft and still. The trees seem carved from sugar, and the sky hangs pale, as if the sun were tucked beneath a heavy quilt. She moves slowly this morning. The hearth has burned low. The stones of the floor are cold beneath her toes. But there is no rush. Not today. For the snow means the hawking grounds will wait. The kestrel will not fly far in such weather. And linnet, like the falcons she trains, knows when to pause, to watch, to wait. She pours warm milk into a small clay bowl, crumbles in a little honeyed oat, not for herself, but for the mice in the wall. Not all falconers were this way. Some scorned the creatures they trained their birds to hunt. But Lynette believed quietly, always quietly, that kindness made the hand steadier. And in her grandmother's voice, still folded somewhere in memory, she could almost hear, even the hunted deserve a little warmth. She wraps herself in her heaviest cloak, a brown wool lined with fox fur, and steps outside. The snow sings under her boots, a gentle crunch, like parchment folding. The kind of sound that reminds you you're not alone in the silence, but a part of it. The kestrel sits perched in the tree just beyond the cottage, hunched and fluffed, beak tucked beneath one wing. She does not call him down. Not yet. Instead, she walks to the edge of the woods, carrying her whistle in one hand and a leather pouch in the other. Inside, small slips of vellum. Each no larger, each bearing a single word. This was her grandmother's secret. Every falconer has a call, Nen had once said. But every falcon should carry a message. In the days before proper messengers, falcons were sometimes trained to carry words, tied gently to their talons, or tucked beneath their breast feathers in silken wraps. Lynette had practiced this art in secret, not to send urgent letters, but to send wishes. Each slip bore a thought, a memory, or a hope. Today's read simply, "Stillness is a kind of strength." She placed it in the pouch and tied it to the perch. She didn't need the kestrel to carry it anywhere. It was enough just to write it, to let it exist in the cold morning air. Later that day, as snow thickened and wind curled around the eaves, Lynette sat beside the hearth with a bundle of falcon bells. Tiny bronze cones, each no larger than a thimble, designed to tie to the bird's leg with thread or leather. They made a sound like silver rain when shaken. Not loud, just enough to let the falconer know when their bird was near. In medieval times, the finest falcon bells were made in Damascus or by monks, who believed each bell should be blessed before ever meeting the sky. Lynette polishes each one gently, using soft cloth and beeswax. This, too, is part of the ritual, part of the bond. When dusk comes, it comes all at once, as it does in winter. The light slips away like a story told too softly to hear. The kestrel stirs, and Lynette steps outside, lantern in hand. She raises her whistle, does not blow it yet, just waits. Then 3 soft notes, low, low, then one that rises like steam. The kestrel launches, wings wide in twilight, tail flicking once, twice. He circles, then lands on her gloved arm. She does not offer food, only stands with him a moment, in the hush of falling snow, as the last of the light slips from the hills. She whispers more to the bird than to herself. Even silence carries songs. And the kestrel tilts his head, his eyes bright and clear, not as a response, not in understanding, but in recognition, in presence. Inside, again, Lynette draws the curtain, puts out the lantern, and sits by the window. In the half-dark, outside, fox prints mark the snow. A hare bounds past, leaving commas in the powder. The world writes stories all night long, in tracks, in shadows, in hush, and she reads them without turning a page. Now, let your breath follow hers, slow and soft, in and out. Like a feather falling through a still wintry sky, you are not hurried, not watched, not held by anything but calm. And the story, like snow, falls gently around you. There is more when you're ready. Our story tonight glides onward like an owl in the dusk. The days have grown shorter now. Frost clings to the windows each morning, etching lace across the glass, as if the night sky had leaned down to leave stardust kisses behind. Lynette wakes early, before the castle bells, before the smoke from chimneys, before even the roosters dare to crow. She dresses in silence, layering wool over linen, soft boots over thick socks. Her breath curls in the air as she opens the door to the still, waiting dark. Today is a binding day. Once every season, she gathers the falconers of the outer villages, just a handful of quiet, sharp-eyed souls who speak little and listen much. They meet not in the castle, nor the village square, but in a ring of standing stones just beyond the eastern ridge. No one knows who placed them there. Some say they're remnants of the old times, long before parchment, before prayer, when people believed the world listened to whispers carried by birds, and once each season, with each other, with the birds, and with the wildness that cannot be named. Lynette brings her kestrel, of course, but she also carries a second perch, wrapped in blue silk. It is for the memory of those birds now past, a tradition among falconers, to honor not only those who soar, but those who once soared. At the ring of stones, there are already others waiting. Ethel, with her buzzard-aged, half-blind, Paran with his black kite, proud and quiet, and little May, no older than 12, cradling a goshawk not much smaller than herself. They nod to Lynette. No words needed. They all know what this place is for. They form a circle, each falconer at a stone, their bird perched close, feathers fluffed against the cold. In the center, a small fire, its smoke rising in steady ribbons, gray as dove wings, and then the ritual begins. Not with prayer, not with speech, but with whistles. Each falconer plays a note, not a melody but a kind of offering. High whistles, low coos, breathy tones that shift with wind and breath. It's said that in medieval times, these gatherings held great weight. Lords would send their falconers to represent them, not just as trainers of birds, but as guardians of instinct and intuition. For falcons were not simply hunters. They were readers of skies, bearers of wind-sent messages, watchers between worlds. And so, the whistle circle honors them. Linnet's turn comes. She steps forward, unwraps the blue silk from her second perch, and holds it close. She does not whistle the tune for the cusp. She whistles the tune her grandmother used for her old peregrine, Ashfall, who had wings like charcoal and eyes like firelight. The sound is slow. Our story today continues beneath a quiet sky, where the snow has melted just enough to leave the earth soft and spongy beneath boot and claw. It is nearing the Feast of Candlemas, the day when villagers would bring wax to the church, to be blessed and made into candles for the dark days still to come. And Linnet, too, has her own offering to prepare. In the soft morning light, she begins to pour bees into carved wooden molds. Each candle is small, just enough to burn for a single hour, and each holds a single feather pressed gently down the side while the wax is warm. It is not for decoration, it is for memory. You see, long ago, her grandmother had whispered a belief that feathers sealed into wax could carry prayers skyward. As the candle burned low, the birds hear them, Nan had said, and carry them to whatever waits beyond the clouds. So Linnet presses in a tawny plume from her youngest falcon, a sleek merlin she calls Myrrh, and into the wax she breathes a single, silent hope. Let courage come gently. Later, in the gathering hush of late afternoon, she carries her basket of feathered candles to the chapel beyond the grove. It is a small stone place, half forgotten, half remembered. Its bell long rusted, its priest long gone. But its walls still hold warmth, still remember him, still smell of pine sap and old straw. She lights one candle until the chapel flickers like a sky full of soft stars. No one watches, no one needs to. This is not a ritual for others. It is for the falcons, for the sky, and for herself. Outside, dusk leans gently against the branches. A breeze curls through the woods, and the chapel's door creaks softly as if sighing in sleep. Lynette stands with the birds. For a time, each of them tethered gently to the perch, but calm, content, trusting, the way falcons sit when they know they are seen, but not demanded of. She does not whistle tonight. No commands, no coos, no coaxing. Just presence. The birds blink slowly. Feathers ruffle. A golden plume drifts loose and settles on the stone altar. Light as a falling dream. There is a peace in this, in the not doing, in letting the world turn without urging it on. In medieval times, some believed that falconers were dream interpreters, that those who trained birds of prey could also read the skies of the soul. And Linné sometimes wonders if those folk weren't so wrong after all. For in these moments of hush, she feels things she cannot name. She does not try to explain them. As the last candle flickers out, she gathers the birds and walks home slowly, letting the wind kiss her cheeks, and the silence rests on her shoulders. Back at the cottage, she stirs a pot of warm spelt porridge, sweetened with a spoonful of apple butter from the cellar jars. As it simmers, the kestrel hops to the windowsill, watching the flakes fall once more. Lynette opens the window, lets the chill in, lets the air shift, lets the world speak. She eats slowly, then brushes out the falcon's tail feathers with a carved bone comb, each stroke quiet and reverent, each bird sighing softly beneath her touch. And when the hearth dims and the night fully folds in, she lights the last of her feathered candles, sets it on the sill, and says nothing. Not everything needs a spell. Some things work better when whispered only to the wax. Now, dear listener, your own thoughts may float like feathers in candlelight. No need to catch them. Just let them pass. You are wrapped in warmth and wings. The wind knows your name, but it does not call it aloud. You are held and heard, and hidden safely in the hush. Later, someone sings an old falconer's lullaby. Fly not high, nor dive too low. Let the wind decide where you go. And Lynette closes her eyes, where that very song had once lulled her to sleep. As the sun arcs gently overhead, Branwen shifts slightly on her perch. Lynette leans close, unhoods her, just for a moment, and meets her dark, ageless gaze. The falcon does not blink. She simply watches, a teacher, a mirror, a friend, and in that moment brief and eternal, Lynette feels it again. That ancient, not trained, not tamed, but trusted. The fair will go on until dusk, but Lynette feels no hurry. She has traded all she meant to, and received more than she hoped for. So she steps away quietly, leaving a final gift on the post. A feather, wrapped in twine, left for someone she does not yet know. She walks home slowly, Branwen resting easy on her glove as the village slips behind. You may rest now too. Let your thoughts soften like snow beneath the trees. Let each breath be the quiet turn of a wheel, carrying you gently onward. The hearth crackles gently. Its glow paints golden shadows across the stone walls. Lynette has returned home. She sets Branwen carefully on her stand near the window. Removing the travel perch wrappings, loosening the jesses with the ease of practice and love. The old falcon stretches one wing, then she settles, eyes closing slowly. Safe, warm, trusted. Outside, the sun slips lower, casting long shadows over the grass. The breeze hums through the linden tree, where a single dry leaf still clings. Lynette lights a small beeswax candle, its flame soft and flickering. On the windowsill, beside her journals, she lays out her trades from the fair. The river clay from the red-bearded man, a kestrel feathered charm from Magda, a folded scrap of parchment containing 3 soft notes. Music not written, but remembered. The melody is old, carried from falconer to falconer like a whispered prayer. Lynette hums it now, just under her breath. Not for performance, not for audience, but because it still lives. The night deepens slowly, like ink dropped into water. She adds another log to the fire, then sits beside it with a blanket tucked around her knees. A teacup warms her hands, steaming with chamomile and nettle. The herbs she and her grandmother once gathered together by the riverbank in spring. Her thoughts drift gently like feathers circling in a still sky. She remembers a story her grandmother once told about the airy bell, a tower on a cliff, where wild falcons were said to roost. Once a year, on the solstice night, a bell was heard from that place. No one knew who rang it, but villagers believed it was a falcon who had learned the sound, not by training. The sound, they said, was neither lonely nor loud. It was soft, a note of remembrance, a call to those who had once flown and now slept. Lynette leans back in her chair, gaze flickering with the firelight. She wonders if such a place could still exist. Somewhere deep in the forgotten hills. Somewhere the birds still go when they do not return. She closes her eyes and listens. Not for bells, not for wind, but for the quiet within. And there she hears it. That hush, that falcon's no. The pause before the leap. The silence. That means trust. She finishes her tea slowly, then walks to the roosting perch where each bird rests in sleep. She checks every strap, every hood, every line, gently, with hands trained in quiet care. Branwen, still closest to the window, tilts her head ever so slightly. Lynette strokes the space beneath her wing, where the feathers are softest, and whispers, "I remember." Later, As the stars bloom across the sky, Lynette sits beneath her quilt with a single candle glowing beside her. And in her hand, the tiny, carved whistle from earlier. She lifts it to her lips and breathes out a single note, not sharp, not loud, but round and calm, like the sound of night itself settling on the land. That one note drifts through the rafters, circles the beams, and settles into sleep with the rest of the house. No bird stirs. No owl replies, but the silence after is sacred. And you, dear dreamer, like Lynette, may now rest. Let the warmth of her hearth become your own. Let the soft note of the whistle echo through your breath. Let each thought become lighter and lighter until it floats away like a feather on the wind. The falcons are at peace, and you are safe. Our story settles now into the deepest fold of winter, where even the rivers move slowly. Lynette wakes to a sky so pale it feels like parchment waiting for a story to be written. The kind of still that presses gently on the skin, not heavy, but expectant. She begins the morning as falconers often do, not with speech, but with listening. She stands on the threshold of her cottage, boots nestled in snow, a fur-lined cloak drawn close, and simply listens. To the hush. To the breath of wind between pines. To the small, round sounds that make the world feel whole. A branch creaks. Snow drops from a limb. The distant chink of a deer's hoof, pressing ice. The falcons are quiet. They always seem to know when the world is listening to. Lynette carries myrrh today, the youngest of her birds, sleek, quick, restless, but still learning the calm, the art of waiting. She takes him to the glade behind the hill, where snow rests on fallen logs and everything smells like wood smoke. She sets down a perch and kneels beside him, not speaking, not commanding. A soft lullaby her grandmother once used to steady frightened fledglings. In medieval courts, some falconers were also musicians. It was believed that the right tune could guide a hawk more surely than the strongest tether. They would train birds not only to fly, but to follow melody. Not many believed it now, but Lynette did, and Myrrh listened. His head tilted, one foot lifted, relaxed, then dropped again. She removed his hood, slowly, always slowly, letting light enter his eyes like a tide. He blinked twice, and then lifted his wings. She did not command him. She did not need to. The song had already done its work. He took to the air in a swift, clean arc, a ribbon of gold and brown. Lynette stood, eyes raised, watching the shape of him as he danced the thermals, and hovered over the glen. Watching a falcon fly, truly fly, is unlike anything else. There is a freedom in it that makes even the watcher feel untethered. She breathed out, fog curling from her lips, and whispered, "Fly, just for joy today. No lure, no task, just sky, and he did. He returned some time later, light as ash upon her glove, wings folding with satisfaction. She fed him gently, a tidbit from a leather pouch, and stroked beneath his chin. He leaned in, just slightly, a sign of growing trust. The walk home was slow, no hurry in her steps, just the crunch of her boots, the warm weight of myrrh, and the sun slipping behind the far ridge like a candle snuffed by breath. At home, she placed myrrh gently in his night roost, checked the others, the kestrel nibbling at a thread of straw, and stirred the pot on the hearth. Stew tonight. Thick and herbed, the kind her grandmother called sky-mender's broth. Feed the flyer, mend the mender. Lynette smiled at the old phrase, whispered it once aloud, and sipped slowly. That evening, carved from dark birch, it held relics from Nan's falconing years. A broken lure, wrapped in wool, a lock of fur from a favorite hound, a coin shaped like a hawk in flight, and a small, folded paper. She opened it. Inside was a drawing, soft and faded. A falcon perched on a rooftop. Nan's handwriting read, "They remember where they once flew, and we remember how they made us brave." Lynette closed the box, held it to her chest a moment, and sat near the window. The moon was rising now, bright and full, casting silver across every branch and shingle. And she knew, in the deepest part of her breath, that the birds felt it too, even in sleep. Our story today drifts forward to a morning kissed by frost, where even the spider webs glistened with tiny jeweled threads. Lynette wakes before the bells of the village, before the first cart rattles down the cobbled road, before even the sun peeks fully over the orchard hill. The birds are quiet, still cloaked beneath their hoods, still breathing soft, steady rhythms. In the dark, she rises without rush, pulling a shawl over her shoulders, still warm from sleep and dreams. The floorboards creak gently beneath her bare feet. Outside, a pair of doves coo from the linden tree. The smell of wood smoke and cold earth lingers in the air. And somewhere nearby, a distant owl calls its final greeting to the night. Today is the day of the midwinter fair. And though Lynette does not care for crowds, she has a reason to go. In a small pouch beside the door, she gathers what she's made through the season. A vial of powdered hawthorn bark, believed to bring clarity and calm. A strip of embroidered leather for lining a falcon's hood, stitched with the old sigil of her family's roost. And a tiny carved whistle made from the bone of a goose's wing, which sings a note so sweet. Even the sparrows pause to listen. These are her offerings, not to sell, but to exchange a quiet tradition, older than coin. At the winter fair, falconers sometimes meet in the shadow of the bell tower, trading not for profit, but for wisdom. One might trade a feather for a story. Another might gift a hood for a single tune played on reed flute. No one keeps count. That is not the point. She tucks her treasures into a woolen satchel, laces up her boots, and gently rouses her oldest falcon Branwen, the dark-feathered matron of her flock. Branwen has flown through 5 winters. She no longer soars high, but her presence is honored, and so Linnet brings her today. Hooded and warm, perched calmly on a soft-wrapped fist. The road to the village is lined with frost-cracked leaves, crisp beneath each footstep. Her breath fogs before her like a drifting cloud. Branwen blinks beneath her hood. Somewhere in the trees, AJ clicks its tongue. And through the hush, the first distant bell tolls. A slow, low chime meant to mark the fair's opening. In the market square, tents bloom like bright petals, striped canvas flapping softly in the wind. Children chase each other past barrels of apples. A baker hums as he stacks round loaves. And over it all, the air is filled with the scent of warm honey, pine resin, and wool. Linnet finds the Falconer's corner, a quiet place near the edge of the square, where hay has been laid in gentle circles and wooden posts mark places to tie each perch. She nods in greeting to those she knows. Old Magda, with her grumpy buzzard, the twins from the coastal cliffs, who whispered 2 goals in a language only they understand, and a red-bearded man from the north, whose kestrel sings in its sleep. The trading begins with murmurs. No shouting, no haggling, just hands extended, a shared glance, a simple yes or no. Linnet offers her whistle to the red-bearded man, and in return, he presses into her palm a small pouch of powdered river clay used to calm a nervous bird's stomach. There are no words, only quiet thanks. She removed his hood, slowly, always slowly, letting light enter his eyes like a tide. He blinked twice, and then lifted his wings. She did not command him. She did not need to. The song had already done its work. He took to the air in a swift, clean arc, a ribbon of gold and brown. Linnet stood, eyes raised, watching the shape of him as he danced the thermals, and hovered over the glen. Watching a falcon fly, truly fly, is unlike anything else. There is a freedom in it that makes even the watcher feel untethered. She breathed out, fog curling from her lips, and whispered, "Fly, just for joy today. No lure, no task, just sky." And he did. He returned some time later, light as ash upon her glove, wings folding with satisfaction. She fed him gently, a tidbit from a leather pouch, and stroked beneath his chin. He leaned in, just slightly, a sign of growing trust. The walk home was slow, no hurry in her steps, just the crunch of her boots, the warm weight of myrrh, and the sun slipping behind the far ridge like a candle snuffed by breath. At home, she placed Myrrh gently in his night roost, checked the others, the kestrel nibbling at a thread of straw, and stirred the pot on the hearth. Stew tonight. Thick and herbed, the kind her grandmother called sky-mender's broth. Feed the flyer, mend the mender. Linnet smiled at the old phrase, whispered it once aloud, and sipped slowly. That evening, carved from dark birch, it held relics from Nan's falconing years. A broken lure, wrapped in wool, a lock of fur from a favorite hound, a coin shaped like a hawk in flight, and a small, folded paper. She opened it. Inside was a drawing, soft and faded. A falcon perched on a rooftop. Nan's handwriting read, "They remember where they once flew, and we remember how they made us brave." Lynette closed the box, held it to her chest a moment, and sat near the window. The moon was rising now, bright and full, casting silver across every branch and shingle. And she knew, in the deepest part of her breath, that the birds felt it too, even in sleep. So she took her whistle, lifted it to her lips, and played a note, not to summon, not to send, but to remember. A single sound, clear, soft, true. It echoed through the beams of the cottage, through the branches outside, through the bellies of sleeping falcons, and then faded, like all the best things do, slowly, lovingly, completely. And you, dreamer, may do the same. Let go now of the shape of the day, of the weight in your chest, of the thoughts still rustling like wings inside your mind. You do not need them now. Only this breath, only this stillness, only this hush. There is more story waiting in the shadows, curled like a roosting bird. Our story now lingers in twilight, the in-between hour, when the sky becomes neither day nor night. Linnet stands by the window of her cottage, looking out over the fields as mist gathers in silver veils. The hearth behind her crackles low, its warmth pooling at her heels. A kettle murmurs over the coals, carrying the scent of dried chamomile and honey root. She writes, slowly, carefully. Each word is deliberate, as if echoing the steady beat of wings in air, to the next who listens. The sky is not owned, nor are the creatures that choose to ride it. You do not teach a bird to fly. You simply learn to fly with them. She folds the parchment with gentle fingers, seals it with wax, tucks it into the wooden box where the others now sleep. Letters like feathers, light, sacred, meant to be found. Outside, the kestrel stirs. Perched on the post beneath the eaves, he lifts his head, scanning the drifting fog. There's a sound, soft and near. Not a call, not a threat, but something else. A second bird, smaller, with darker markings, circling just above the tree line. A sparrowhawk, young, unfamiliar, lost, perhaps. The kestrel does not stir. He watches, waits, and linnet, who has learned from feathers more than books, does the same. The sparrowhawk lands at the edge of the clearing, wings trembling, eyes wide. It is rare a bird not trained, drawn by sound, by scent, by the calm rhythm of a quiet home. Linnet steps outside, barefoot in the grass, offering nothing but stillness. She crouches low, hands resting on her knees, and begins to whistle. Not a command, just a melody soft and drifting. The same, her grandmother, once used to comfort the injured dove that slept beside the old garden gate. The sparrowhawk tilts its head, steps closer, then closer still. It doesn't land on her, but it listens. And that is enough. For many days after, the young hawk lingers near. Never caught, never bound. It sits on fences, perches in nearby trees, and watches as linnet trains the kestrel in the softened light of dusk. And at night, its shadow passes silently across the moon. The villagers begin to speak again, but now their tone has changed. Not suspicion, but curiosity. Respect. Did you see the birds above her house? They say she doesn't keep them. She walks with them. They say they follow her, even when she makes no sound. And in the quiet of her home, Linnet thinks of the old words. How falconers once whispered that birds could sense grief, sense trust, sense change. So each night now, before she sleeps, Linnet sits by her open window and hums a tune with no name. The birds hear, the wind hears, and maybe so do the stars. It's easy now to imagine her grandmother beside her, rocking gently in the chair by the hearth, her shawl smelling faintly of sage and feather oil, eyes crinkled with mirth, voice soft as ever. You never truly train a bird, my dear. You simply learn to speak its silence. And as the fire dies down, and the candle lowers itself into stillness, Linnet draws a blanket over her knees, closes her eyes, and listens to the wind, to the unseen wings passing overhead, and she knows she is not alone, and neither are you. Here in this gentle hush, with the breeze like a lullaby, and your breath as steady as the kestrel's wings, you are seen. You are heard. You are held. Our tale now folds into early autumn, when the fields are golden and the trees begin to whisper of change. Linnet has grown taller in the villagers' eyes, not because she sought power, but because she stood still, softly. And softness, when held with steadiness, becomes something very strong. At the castle, a new hawking tournament is announced. Not for war, but for honor, for art. Young falconers are invited from every shire and dale. And though she never imagined herself among them, Lynette receives a scroll sealed with the wax crest of the Duchess. Your birds move like songs we've never heard. Come, show us. Lynette breathes slowly. She does not crave attention. But the kestrel nudges her hand with his beak, and she smiles. I'll go, but only if you lead. The journey takes 2 days. She walks most of the way, with the kestrel gliding high above, circling her steps. At night, she sleeps beneath hedgerows and dreams of wings, of her grandmother's voice, of whistles carried like ribbons in wind. The castle rises like a stone song at the valley's edge. Banners flutter, trumpets call. But Lynette moves quietly, a basket at her side, and eyes full of sky. Inside the courtyard, falconers from across the land prepare. They wear velvet gloves. Their birds wear silver bells. They look at Lynette, a girl in linen with mud on her boots, and they glance away. But the Duchess watches from her tower. She's older than the others. A woman with hair like braided frost and a voice that sounds like it's used to being heard. When she speaks, the courtyard stills. Let the birds show us, not the ribbons on their reins. Lynette steps into the ring. The kestrel stands calmly on her wrist, his head turning slowly in the breeze. There is no jess on his leg, no hood on his eyes. Only trust. She lifts her hand. The crowd leans in, but Lynette does not shout. She does not snap her fingers. She closes her eyes and whistles. A single, soft note. High and thin, like mist on morning water. The kestrel lifts. Not fast. Not dramatic. He rises as if woken from a dream, spiraling slowly above the court. And as he turns, Lynette hums another note, barely audible. The crowd doesn't understand what they're hearing, but they feel it. A hush settles over them. Even the other birds quiet. The kestrel loops back, gliding low. And then, with a final glide, he lands on Lynette's shoulder. Not her wrist, but her shoulder like a friend would. The Duchess stands, her eyes glimmer. She does not clap. She bows, and so does the court. Later that evening, Lynette walks alone in the castle gardens. The stone paths are warm from the day's sun, and the hedges hum with quiet life. The kestrel rides her shoulder again, watching the stars begin to appear. The Duchess joins her. Just 2 women, and a sky full of wing-shaped dreams. Your birds, says the Duchess softly, do not serve you. They believe in you. Lynette nods. I believe in them, too. They walk without speaking, listening instead to the quiet world around them. A fox stirs beyond the yew trees. A nightjar calls somewhere distant. And Lynette, for the first time, feels not just seen, but understood. That night, she sleeps in a guest room with stone walls and ivy tapping the glass. The kestrel perches near her bed, and just before sleep takes her, she whistles one more time, a gentle note, a promise to the stars. You, too, can let that note echo in your chest, in your breath, in the hush, just before dreaming. And if you're ready to float farther, autumn lengthens, and with it, the soft turning of leaves and days that glow gold before giving in to dusk. Lynette returns to her village quietly. No parade, no escort, just the road she knows, and the kestrel flying gently overhead, his wings cutting silent lines through the early twilight. The fields welcome her like an old friend. Even the scarecrows seem to nod as she walks past. The villagers, once skeptical, now smile softly, not because she won a contest. Still Lynette, still the girl who speaks to birds like prayers. She visits her grandmother's grave. There is no marble, just a mossy stone tucked beneath the hawthorn tree, where birds come to rest in the hush of evening. She kneels and presses a folded square of cloth onto the grass. Inside it, a carved wooden whistle, worn smooth from generations of use. It worked, she murmurs. A robin lands nearby. It tilts its head, listening, then chirps, a high, trilling note. And Lynette smiles. Yes, she whispers. I'll keep teaching. That winter, only a few. But those who come are the quiet ones. The children who listen more than they speak. Who pause before touching a feather. Who notice how the wind moves before it changes. They gather near the stone bridge, just after sunrise, when frost still laces the grass. Lynette shows them how to whistle with their mouths closed, how to walk with soft heels, how to look not at the bird, but beside it. She tells them the oldest rule: the falcon is not your servant. The falcon is your mirror. Train your breath before your bird. They laugh sometimes when a hawk perches on someone's head instead of their glove. They cry once when a bird doesn't return, and Lynette lets them. Because feelings, she says, are also part of the training. One evening, a boy named Piers stays behind. He's been quiet all day, his hawk restless. Lynette sits beside him on the low stone wall. He watches the fading sun and asks, "How do I know if it loves me?" She waits a moment, watching the wind move the bare branches, then answers, "It doesn't need to love you. It needs to trust that you will always be kind. And that's harder, but better." Piers nods. And the hawk, as if reassured, settles on his knee. The falcons change in winter. Their feathers grow thicker, their flights shorter. They hunt less often, resting more under the pale sun. Linnet wraps their talons in soft leather when snow comes. She tucks bits of goose fat and rosemary into their feed. And at night, she whistles lullabies by the hearth, with a candle flickering near the door. Sometimes, the children come back just to sit. No lessons, no hawks. Just stillness, and stories, and something warm to hold. One night, a storm rolls through. The wind howls against the shutters. The kestrel flutters in his sleep, and Linnet stirs from her bed. She lights a small lamp, carrying it into the barn where the birds rest in high rafters and soft straw. One by one, she checks them, touches each beak, whispers their names, and then she sings. Not loudly, not to be heard, but to offer rhythm to a world turning restless. The rain slows. The kestrel shifts once more, then settles fully, his head beneath his wing, a little colder, but full. Morning breaks with pale light, and a silence that feels like velvet. Linnet steps outside and sees tracks in the snow. Not boots, not paws, but talons. Several sets of them leading away from the dovecote toward the woods. But not in fear. The kestrel is still with her. But some birds, it seems, have chosen the sky, and Linnet, after a quiet breath, lets them go. Because falconry is not keeping, it is remembering. And remembering, sometimes, means releasing. You may rest now, dear listener. Let yourself feel that same softness, a heart open enough to hold flight, and brave enough to let it leave. And when you're ready to float into the final 1,000 words of our tale, spring returns. The frost gives way to shoots of green. The branches bud again, and birdsong begins to trickle back like a half-remembered lullaby. Linnet walks the meadows alone sometimes, her hand resting lightly on the carved whistle at her neck. She does not always call. Not every walk is for summoning. Some are for silence, the kind that comes when you trust the world to return what you've released. On one such walk, the air smells of thawing earth and violets, and far above her, a shadow crosses the sun. A falcon larger than most circles once. Then twice, Linnet doesn't reach for her glove. She only looks up, her eyes soft. The falcon lets out a cry, not the call of warning, but the long, low note of greeting. It banks and disappears behind the hill. That night, she dreams of her grandmother. Not as an old woman, but younger, laughing, kneeling beside a kestrel nest. Her long braids catching in the wind. They don't speak. They just watch the birds together as they lift into the fading sun. The next morning, Linnet places the carved whistle in a small box lined with wool and lichen. She tucks it away in the dovecote rafters. For the next voice, she whispers, and from then on, she trains without it. Her voice becomes her whistle. Her breath becomes her language. She no longer mimics the birds. She meets them halfway. The children she once taught now bring their own. One returns from a distant village, her sleeves patched with rose-colored thread. Another comes from the coast, his hawk sharp-eyed and golden-chested. They gather near the hearth, grown now, but still quiet at heart. One evening, when the fire is low and only embers remain, someone asks. Linnet smiles, running her fingers along the worn leather edge of her glove. No, she says softly, because I never left the real kingdom. She gestures to the window, where dusk settles like a blanket over the fields. This is where the true crown rests. And there, by the barn, where feathers drift like snow, beneath the hawthorn tree, not loud, not grand, but steady and kind. Just like linnet. You've come so far, like a young kestrel on its first wind, like a hush slowly deepening across the land. Let yourself drift now. There is no more to do, no more to prove. The field is quiet, the wings are still, and the whistle is soft on the air, guiding dreams gently home. Sleep now. Let feathers fall behind your eyes, and breath flow like wind between pines. Tomorrow, you may rise with the falcons. But tonight, you rest, always softly.